Somebody much smarter than this than I'll ever be is Jerry Palm. He joins us from CBSSports.com, the bracketology expert. Hi, Jerry. It's Brad. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well. Am I on mark with my comments on Arizona State tonight being a playoff game, so to speak, to get in the tournament? If you lose to Utah, that's really a death blow.
Yeah, the difference being, though, that in a playoff, winning would imply that you're in, and certainly that's not the case with Arizona State. It's just a matter of avoiding a bad loss at this point. For Arizona State, the hole in their profile is that they're kind of a home court hero. You know, Colorado at home, UCLA at home, Cal at home. Those are their three best wins. And they need to show that they can play tournament-quality basketball away from home. They haven't done that yet. And they also have a couple of home losses. Stanford most recently, of course, and DePaul, their worst loss of the year. So, you know, they're really in a position where they need to avoid losing to teams that are not really contenders, home or away. But then, you know, pick up a win at, you know, Colorado or UCLA or Arizona, where you can show the committee that you can play tournament-quality basketball away from home. And, of course, failing that, there's still the conference tournament, which is also away from home.
Sure, in Vegas. Jerry Palm with us, CBSSports.com, bracketology expert. Their whole schedule, their body of work, I've pounded my fist for years out here that the teams they play in November and in December are atrocious. This year, yeah, they played Arkansas and they played Creighton. It's a tad better. But when you go through their body of work in their non-conference, just how bad is it, Jerry? Or am I making too big a deal out of it?
Well, it is bad. Their non-conference schedule ranks 283rd. So if they're on the cut line in the minds of the committee, that alone could keep them out.
283.
That has happened to Arizona State before. So if they have, failed to learn their lesson, they may get taught another one. You know, and that's just the way it is. I mean, the committee, they do this to somebody almost every single year, sometimes more than one somebody. Those teams will get left out for no other reason than they didn't do enough in their league and they didn't play anybody out of their league.
You can follow Jerry on Twitter at JPPalmCBS. He's on Twitter. Jerry Palm with us from CBSSports.com. Sean Miller said yesterday that 5 teams deserve to be in from the Pac-12 in the tournament. I think that's ridiculous as it sits right now. What do you think?
Did he say which 5?
He didn't say which 5. He just said 5.
Okay. I thought maybe he was on the committee.
And we know it's that time of year where coaches are always lobbying, sure. Jerry. They're always going to say, our conference is the greatest. You're in the middle of this stuff. Does the Pac-12 deserve 5?
Well, first of all, conferences don't get bids. Teams get bids. So we'll see if 5 teams can put together tournament-quality resumes. Arizona clearly, you know, among the dozen or so teams fighting for number 1 seed. Colorado, UCLA, Oregon look okay at the moment, but those 3 teams are not sure thing. They're just kind of on the right side of things at the moment. Oregon needs to get their point guard back because they're clearly not the same team without him, and they're not saying much about his injury at all. But UCLA, Colorado, you know, I think those 2 are kind of headed in the right direction, at least at the moment. But then you've got teams like Arizona State and Stanford that haven't done quite enough and still have work to do. And, you know, for Arizona State, it's a particularly difficult finishing schedule because it's 5 out of 7 on the road, but it's also an opportunity for them to fill the holes in their resume because they've got 5 out of 7 on the road. Stanford needs quality wins of any stripe, good home, away, indifferent, whatever. They need to start piling up some quality wins because they don't have a good record against the better teams that they've played.
How about sticking with Sean Miller and his team? Have they done enough to warrant a 3 or a 2 seed in your view?
Oh, I think at least a 3. Yeah, I think that's like the bottom for them, barring, you know, some bad losses down the stretch here or some kind of a slump because it's really competitive at the top of the bracket this year. But I would be surprised if Arizona did worse than a 3 by the time this is all said and done. And I don't think a 1 is out of the question for them.
Jerry Palm with us. Jerry Palm, CBSSports.com, bracketology expert. March Madness right around the corner. Again, in 2 weeks, we'll be out in L.A. with ASU and U of A for the UCLA-USC games. We'll be in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 tournament, and we will follow both teams, or if it's just the U of A, as well through March Madness. Your ones right now, and we've had so many experts on. We had Clark Kellogg on the other day and Seth Davis, and trying to figure out the 1 seeds overall. Is it really cut and dry, or is there so much margin, like Miami of Florida tonight against Florida State? Your ones right now, who are they?
Well, as of like right this second, the bracket I did on Monday had Michigan, Indiana, Miami, and Duke. And then Michigan lost by 75,000 to Michigan State last night. I think Michigan State's still scoring. And I think if I were to do a bracket this morning, based on that, Michigan would be off the top line and Michigan State would be on it. So, that's how fluid this thing is. I cannot today positively identify any team that I know for sure is going to be a number one seed in a month. I don't have any idea who's definitely going to be a number one seed. That's very unusual. Usually by the middle of January, you can pick out at least one, maybe two teams that you think, barring some sort of injury, those are going to be number one seeds. This year, I've got like 10, 11, 12 teams that are all about the same in varying ways, and any of them could be number one seeds.
Let me throw a perennial power at you. Kentucky, where are they right now in your bracket?
In deep trouble. They're a double-digit seed in my bracket. That's before last night's loss to Florida, which, that's not the kind of loss that hurts you a whole lot, even though they got a pretty good margin. I mean, Florida does that to a lot of teams and certainly should do that to a team the caliber of Kentucky. But the thing that hurt them is the loss of Nerlens Noel to an injury to his knee. And if that's a season-ending injury, Kentucky's in a lot of trouble because he's their best player. They don't have a lot of margin for error in terms of putting together a profile to get selected, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on them to reprove themselves to the committee that they're a tournament quality team when maybe they haven't even really proved it yet.
How much howling will we hear from other conferences that look at the Big Ten this year with the number of Big Ten teams that are going? Because I have to assume that you've got quite a few that are in this year.
7.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be those 7. There's really the only other outside of the top 7 in that league. The only other one that's somewhat questionable is Iowa, who really needs to get hot and stay hot if they're going to have a chance, and haven't really shown they're capable of that. But you never know. But the Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan State, Indiana, Wisconsin, Ohio State, those are all pretty solid tournament teams, all in the top half of the bracket I just did. So barring a slump by one of those teams, those 7 all look pretty solid.
Jerry Palm with us. A couple other questions before we let you go. CBSSports.com. You can check out all of his work, /college basketball bracketology. Is this the year where we see a 16 beat a 1 because there's so much parity? Maybe.
It's not so much the parity, because parity just sort of implies equal strength. It's the fact that it's equal, not so much strength, that allows the possibility of a 16 to beat a 1. But what you're going to need to have happen is it's going to have to be probably a good matchup for the 16. The 1's going to have to help them out by having a bad day. That's the nature of that matchup is there's a great disparity in talent and accomplishment between the 1 and the 16, and that'll be true still this year, even if it's a little bit less. But I think that the possibility is there, but until you see the bracket, it's hard to say, because those 16s a lot of times are teams that didn't even win smaller conferences but were upset winners in conference tournaments. So. Those teams are kind of hard-pressed to take on the Indianas of the world.
Before I let you go, back on Arizona State with tonight's game against Utah and the fan base here in the Valley, they're out right now in your bracket. But are there other teams that across the country fans should be looking at that are right there with them on the cut line?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Too many to name in your show.
Okay, yeah.
But pretty much any team in the middle of a major conference, any team near the top of some of the better non-major conferences like the A-10, the Mountain West, the Missouri Valley. I've got, probably 30 teams on my bubble.
Sure.
Arizona State's one of them. So, if you go to the bracketology page and you look at Bubble Watch, that's the list of teams that you want to be watching.
And in a couple of weeks from now, it's really going to come down, if they don't have the bad loss, it's going to come down to probably some of these conference tournaments and upsets in the conference tournament, and Arizona State's ability to go deep into the Pac-12 tournament for them to get in.
Perhaps.
It feels like that's where it's heading, Jerry.
Yeah, perhaps. If they can avoid the bad loss over these next 7 games, especially considering that so many of those teams they're going to play them on the road. By the time they get to the conference tournament, maybe they'll be in a little safer place because other teams around them are falling on their sword, which actually is typically what happens. Those teams are on the bubble for a reason. It's because they're not consistently good. So if Arizona State can put together a little bit of a run, maybe they can take themselves out of that equation.
Appreciate the time, Jerry, as always. Thank you.
All right, thanks.